Hello, everyone, welcome back to the Freedomcast news channel. Please subscribe my channel and click on bell icon for more news updates. Today, we bring you a story that is shaking the very foundations of Eastern Europe, a story that has turned the capital of Belarus into a city of fear, smoke, and resistance. Minsk, a place that once stood as the heart of an unshakable regime, is now the epicenter of chaos. Alexander Lukashenko, who for nearly 3 decades ruled his nation with an iron grip, now faces the most dramatic challenge of his political life. The streets that once echoed with parades and propaganda now thunder with the sounds of protest, gunfire, and despair. Across the skyline, the rising smoke tells a story of a nation tearing itself apart, where citizens who once stayed silent are now speaking with courage, and where the mighty walls of dictatorship are finally beginning to crumble. In the heart of Minsk, everything that once represented control has dissolved into uncertainty. Crowds of people have filled Independence Square, waving flags of resistance, chanting for freedom, and demanding an end to the reign of fear. The government buildings that once housed absolute power are now fortified by sandbags and guarded by nervous soldiers. There is no sense of calm. Every corner carries tension. Every shadow hides suspicion. Journalists from across the world are struggling to report the unfolding events as signals are jammed, the internet goes dark, and state television feeds a reality that no longer matches what people see outside their windows. The exterior of the city has transformed from a showcase of Soviet stability into a living symbol of rebellion, a portrait of people standing up after years of silence. As night falls, Minsk glows not with light, but with the fires of unrest. Helicopters hover above the city, searchlights cutting through the darkness as small groups of protesters evade capture. The cold air carries the echoes of defiance, chants of freedom, mixing with the sharp crack of weapons. For years, Lukashenko's rule depended on the illusion of order, but now that illusion has shattered. Even the military, once his strongest pillar, is beginning to fracture. Reports emerge of elite units refusing orders, of soldiers choosing not to fire on civilians, of secret messages exchanged between officers who believe the time of the old guard is over. The exterior of this once controlled empire is collapsing, revealing the raw, unfiltered chaos beneath. Inside the corridors of power, the situation is no better. Ministers hold emergency meetings behind closed doors, their faces pale, their voices shaking. Whispers of betrayal flow through the halls. Some officials are quietly preparing to flee, others are destroying documents to hide years of corruption. The interior of the regime, which once functioned with precision and fear, is now infected with doubt. Even those who once swore loyalty to Lukashenko are now questioning whether his time has finally ended. Inside homes, ordinary families sit by candlelight, trying to contact loved ones through broken phone lines, terrified by the distant booms that shake their walls. The fear that once belonged only to the people has now entered the heart of the government itself. When we look at how Lukashenko's system performs under this unprecedented pressure, it becomes clear that it was never built for resistance, only obedience. For nearly 30 years, the state's machinery relied on intimidation, on the silence of its people, and on the unwavering support of its security forces. But as the anger of citizens spreads from city to city, the performance of the government begins to falter. The propaganda that once filled the airwaves no longer convinces anyone. The police who once stood as symbols of fear now face overwhelming crowds. The performance of control is gone, replaced by confusion and chaos. Even the international community can see that Belarus, once touted as the most stable post-Soviet state, is now on the verge of a total breakdown. On the streets, the signs of this collapse are visible everywhere. Convoys of armored vehicles move through empty roads, their tracks carving scars into the pavement. Storefronts are shattered, and slogans calling for freedom are painted on every wall. Protesters carry makeshift shields, facing off against riot police who themselves look exhausted, their faces showing hesitation rather than conviction. The once efficient order of Minsk is gone. The transportation system has slowed to a crawl, banks have limited withdrawals, and food supplies are dwindling. Long lines form outside bakeries, people trade goods on the streets, and the sound of fear mixes with determination. For the first time, citizens believe that the fall of the regime is not just possible, but inevitable. In times like these, the idea of safety becomes meaningless. The safety features of a functioning society, hospitals, emergency services, stable communications have all begun to break down. Ambulances struggle to reach the wounded through barricaded streets. Hospitals overflow with people injured in clashes, their corridors echoing with cries and chaos. Power outages leave neighborhoods in darkness, and the only light comes from burning tires and flares. Families huddle together in basements, listening to radio frequencies that broadcast unconfirmed updates. Mothers hold their children close, praying for silence between explosions. The once predictable life of Minsk has turned into a desperate fight for survival, where even stepping outside can be a matter of life and death. Beyond the borders of Belarus, the world watches closely. Russia, Lukashenko's strongest ally, seems uncertain about how far it should go to protect him. Moscow's silence has become louder than words. Meanwhile, neighboring countries strengthen their borders, fearing a flood of refugees. Western powers condemn the violence but remain cautious, knowing that any move could trigger a larger regional confrontation. The international stage reflects the fragility of this crisis, everyone waiting, no one acting decisively. The safety net that once surrounded the Belarusian regime is unraveling, and Lukashenko finds himself increasingly isolated, trapped by the consequences of his own control. Despite the destruction, something remarkable is happening among the people. The true spirit of Belarus is beginning to shine through the smoke. The unity that was once suppressed by decades of dictatorship is now emerging stronger than ever. Citizens who never spoke to each other before are now organizing, helping one another, and protecting their neighborhoods. Students build barricades, doctors treat the wounded in secret clinics, and artists create symbols of hope on the ruined walls. The resilience of the Belarusian people has become the new heartbeat of the nation. This is their unique strength, the courage to stand, to rebuild, to dream of freedom, even when surrounded by fear. What makes this situation different from other uprisings is how deeply personal it feels for every Belarusian. This is not just a political revolution, it is an emotional reckoning. Decades of silence, propaganda, and control have been replaced by an unstoppable wave of truth. Each person who steps out into the streets carries the memory of friends lost, rights denied, and dreams stolen. And now, they are reclaiming them all. The slogans painted on city walls are not just words, they are promises. Promises of a future where no one is forced to whisper, where no one disappears for speaking their mind, and where freedom is not just an idea, but a lived reality. However, the price of such change is immense. The economic cost of this collapse is catastrophic. Factories have stopped operating, foreign investors have pulled out, and the Belarusian ruble continues to lose value. Supermarkets stand half empty, and the prices of basic goods have skyrocketed. The financial system is paralyzed as sanctions and instability grip the nation. But beyond economics lies a greater cost, the human one. The loss of innocent lives, the displacement of families, the psychological scars left on children who wake to the sounds of war. Each explosion, each arrest, each act of violence adds to the heavy toll that the nation will carry for generations. The price of Lukashenko's empire was always hidden behind the mask of order, but now it is exposed for all to see. The years of oppression, the silenced voices, the political prisoners, the broken promises, all of it has accumulated into this moment. A nation paying its overdue debt to history. The people who once feared to speak now roar in defiance, knowing that freedom always comes at a price, and that the blood and pain of today will shape the dawn of tomorrow. Inside the presidential palace, Lukashenko reportedly moves through empty halls surrounded by loyal guards, isolated from the reality outside. The man who once called himself the father of the nation now faces the collapse of everything he built. He blames foreign interference, Western plots, and invisible enemies, but deep down even his closest circle knows the truth: the collapse is coming from within. His speeches, once commanding and confident, now sound desperate and hollow. The performance of strength has turned into the theater of survival. History is closing in on him, and he seems unable to stop it. As the days pass, Minsk becomes a city divided between past and future. One side clings to the remnants of authority, while the other fights for rebirth. The air smells of both smoke and hope. The clash between these two worlds defines every street, every confrontation, every decision made in fear or courage. The people of Belarus are not just fighting a regime, they are fighting the memory of what they were told to be, reclaiming what they were meant to become. The spirit of the revolution spreads beyond Minsk, reaching towns and villages where whispers of resistance turn into open defiance. A new generation, raised in fear, now stands at the front lines of freedom. International analysts call this the breaking point, the moment when Lukashenko's empire finally meets its end. Diplomats debate sanctions, journalists document the destruction, and historians begin writing the first lines of a new chapter. The fall of Minsk may change not only Belarus, but the entire balance of power in Eastern Europe. A weakened Belarus means a nervous Moscow, a cautious NATO, and a shifting geopolitical map. But for the people inside the country, politics means little compared to survival. They are fighting not for strategy but for dignity, for a chance to live without fear, for the simple right to decide their own destiny. As days turn into nights, the city's rhythm changes. The chaos outside is met with quiet acts of kindness inside. Strangers share food, families shelter protesters, and volunteers treat the injured. Hope begins to take shape even among the ruins. Though the future is uncertain, the determination is stronger than ever. This is not just the collapse of a regime, it is the awakening of a nation. The courage born in these dark days will become the foundation of whatever Belarus builds next. The struggle for freedom, once suppressed, now burns brighter than the fires consuming the city. The world watches closely, wondering how long Lukashenko can hold on. But history has a way of moving faster than anyone expects. One by one, his allies distance themselves. The old system crumbles piece by piece. What remains is a leader surrounded by walls, while outside those walls stands a nation that no longer fears him. Every revolution begins quietly, but when it erupts, it cannot be contained. The will of the people, once awakened, is stronger than any army, louder than any propaganda, and deeper than any fear. That will is now moving through Belarus like a storm that cannot be stopped. As the smoke clears and the echoes of resistance continue, the world begins to realize that Minsk is not just another city in turmoil. It has become a symbol of defiance, of awakening, and of rebirth. The collapse of Lukashenko's regime is not merely a political event. It is a human story, one written in courage, suffering, and hope. The people of Belarus have shown that even after decades of control, a single spark of truth can ignite an entire nation. And though the road ahead is long and filled with uncertainty, the direction is finally clear. The era of fear is ending, and a new dawn is waiting to rise over the skyline of Minsk. The empire built on silence is collapsing, and in its place, a new voice is rising, the voice of a free Belarus. Thank you for watching Freedomcast News. Please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more updates and detailed analysis of global events. Stay safe, stay aware, and never stop seeking the truth, because the world is changing fast, and only those who stay informed can truly understand its future.